What if I told you that after Jesus died, the world didn't just mourn but witnessed events so extraordinary they defied explanation? Some call them miracles, others call them mysteries. But all agree these moments changed history forever. Today, we're diving deep into 7 mind-blowing events that shook the world after Jesus' crucifixion. From eerie darkness covering the earth to graves opening and the dead walking among the living. These stories are not only fascinating but also deeply symbolic. But before we get into the details, let me set the stage for you. Imagine yourself in 1st century Judea, a land under Roman occupation, where tensions between faith and oppression simmered daily. People were waiting for a Messiah, but no one expected what happened next. When Jesus died, it wasn't just another execution. It triggered a chain reaction of events so bizarre that even secular historians took notice. These events weren't random. They formed a ripple effect that challenged beliefs, reshaped societies, and left an indelible mark on human history. Let's rewind for a moment. The crucifixion itself was a brutal event. Jesus, a man who claimed to be the Son of God, was sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. He was flogged, mocked, and nailed to a cross alongside 2 criminals. As he hung there, his followers watched in horror, their hopes crushed. But what happened next would defy logic and leave witnesses struggling to make sense of it all. By the end of this video, you might start questioning everything you thought you knew about what happened after Jesus gave up his last breath. Did these events really occur? If so, what do they mean for us today? And why have billions of people throughout history believed in their significance? To truly understand these events, we need to explore them in detail. Each one carries profound implications, not just for those who lived through them, but for humanity as a whole. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get started. Event No. 1. The darkness that covered the Earth. Imagine this. For 3 hours, the entire planet was plunged into eerie darkness. What caused it? Was it supernatural, or something else entirely? This isn't just speculation. Multiple ancient texts describe this phenomenon. The Bible tells us in Matthew 27:45 that from noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness fell across the land. But it wasn't just limited to biblical accounts. Historians like Thallus, a 1st century Roman writer, noted unusual celestial disturbances during this time. Some modern scholars suggest natural explanations like a solar eclipse or volcanic activity. But here's the catch. A solar eclipse can't happen during Passover because it occurs during a full moon. And no volcanic eruption has ever been recorded that could explain such widespread darkness. As people looked up at the sky, confused and terrified, one thing became clear. Something monumental had occurred. Picture yourself standing in the streets of Jerusalem, surrounded by chaos. The sun disappears without warning, and the air grows heavy with an unexplainable stillness. Would you think it was divine wrath, a sign of judgment, or perhaps something far more mysterious? This darkness wasn't just a physical absence of light, it was a spiritual statement that echoed through the ages. It marked the moment when God turned his face away as Jesus bore the sins of humanity. Let's delve deeper into the historical context. In ancient cultures, celestial phenomena often carried significant meaning. Solar eclipses, comets, and other anomalies were interpreted as omens or messages from the gods. The sudden, unexplained darkness that covered the earth during Jesus' crucifixion would have been seen as a cosmic event of unparalleled importance. Even non-Christian sources acknowledge that something unusual happened that day. Now consider the psychological impact on those who experienced it. Imagine being a Roman soldier stationed near the cross, tasked with ensuring Jesus' death. Suddenly, the world goes dark. Your senses are heightened. What does it mean? Is it punishment for executing an innocent man? Or is it something beyond human comprehension? This darkness wasn't just a physical occurrence. It was a spiritual declaration heard around the globe. But wait, the darkness wasn't the only strange thing happening that day. Let me tell you about what came next. Event number 2. The temple veil tears in two. Now imagine standing inside the Jewish temple when suddenly, with a deafening sound, the massive veil separating the Holy of Holies tears from top to bottom. Only the high priest could enter this sacred space once a year, and even then, he risked death if unclean. Yet here it was, torn apart as if by an invisible hand. This wasn't just fabric ripping, it was a message to the world. Access to God was now open to everyone. The temple veil wasn't just any curtain. It was 60 feet tall, woven with gold thread, and considered sacred beyond measure. Its tearing wasn't just symbolic. It was an act that challenged the very foundations of Jewish religious practice. Scholars debate whether this event was literal or metaphorical, but its implications are undeniable. It signaled the end of the Old Covenant and the beginning of a new relationship between humanity and the divine. Think about how transformative this moment must have been for those who witnessed it. Imagine being a priest performing rituals in the temple when suddenly the veil rips open. What would you feel? Awe, fear, confusion? This event wasn't just a physical act. It was a spiritual declaration heard around the globe. Let's explore the theological significance further. In Jewish tradition, the Holy of Holies represented the presence of God. Only the high priest could enter, and only after rigorous purification rituals. The tearing of the veil symbolized the removal of barriers, not just physical ones but spiritual ones as well. Humanity no longer needed intermediaries to approach God. The way was now open for everyone. Modern audiences often struggle to grasp the magnitude of this event. To truly appreciate it, consider the cultural and religious context of the time. The temple was the center of Jewish life, and the veil was its most sacred feature. Its destruction would have been shocking, even scandalous. Yet it carried a deeper message, one that resonates even today. But here's where things get even stranger. The dead weren't staying dead. Event number 3. The dead rise from their graves. What would you do if graves opened and long dead bodies walked among the living? Sounds like a horror movie, but it actually happened. According to Matthew 27:52-53, immediately after Jesus' death, tombs broke open, and many holy people who had died were raised to life. They appeared to countless witnesses in Jerusalem, shaking the very foundations of belief. Who were these saints? Where did they go afterward? Scholars have debated this event for centuries, but one thing is certain. It left an indelible mark on those who saw it. Imagine being someone in Jerusalem witnessing this firsthand. How terrifying, yet awe-inspiring it must have been. Picture the scene. Graves cracking open, figures emerging, and walking through the streets. Were they ghosts, resurrected beings, or something else entirely? This event challenges our understanding of life, death, and resurrection. It wasn't just a random miracle, it was a preview of what was to come. Jesus' resurrection wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a larger narrative that redefined existence itself. Let's break this down further. First, consider the logistics. How many graves opened? Who exactly rose from the dead? The text specifies many holy people, suggesting a select group rather than a mass resurrection. These individuals likely appeared to specific witnesses, reinforcing the authenticity of the event. Next, think about the emotional impact. Imagine seeing a deceased loved one walking toward you. Would you embrace them, ask questions, or flee in terror? This event blurred the line between life and death, challenging everything people thought they knew about mortality. Finally, reflect on the broader implications. If the dead could rise, what does that mean for the living? Is death truly the end, or is there hope beyond the grave? These questions have echoed through the ages, shaping religious and philosophical thought. But there's more. Not only were the dead walking, but nature itself seemed to rebel against what had happened. Event number 4. A massive earthquake strikes. Could the earth itself feel the weight of what happened on the cross? This earthquake suggests it did. Rocks split, mountains trembled, and the ground shook violently as Jesus breathed his last. In Matthew 27:51, we read about this catastrophic quake that accompanied his death. Earthquakes often symbolize divine intervention in ancient texts, and this one was no exception. It was as if creation itself cried out in response to the injustice of the crucifixion. Compare this to modern earthquakes. This wasn't just a minor tremor, it was a seismic upheaval that left its mark on history. Eyewitnesses reported rocks splitting apart and tombs breaking open. The sheer force of this quake must have been overwhelming. Imagine feeling the ground beneath your feet move uncontrollably, hearing the sound of cracking stone and collapsing structures. Would you think it was divine wrath, a sign of judgment, or perhaps something far more mysterious? Let's examine the geological evidence, or lack thereof. While some skeptics dismiss this earthquake as mythological exaggeration, others point to historical records of seismic activity in the region. Could this quake have been part of a larger pattern of natural disasters linked to the crucifixion? Beyond the physical impact, consider the emotional toll. Imagine being a Roman soldier guarding the tomb of Jesus when suddenly the earth begins to shake. Would you stand your ground or flee in terror? This earthquake wasn't just a physical event. It was a psychological shockwave that rippled through the community. But the physical signs weren't the only proof of what happened next. Pontius Pilate, the man who sentenced Jesus to death, reportedly experienced something far more personal. Event number 5. Pontius Pilate's nightmare. Did Pontius Pilate regret sentencing Jesus to death? Some say his guilt haunted him in ways no one expected. While the Bible doesn't explicitly mention this, apocryphal writings and early Christian legends describe Pilate having vivid nightmares and visions following the crucifixion. Whether these accounts are true or not, they reflect a universal truth. Guilt has a way of manifesting physically and mentally. Picture Pilate lying awake at night, tormented by the image of the innocent man he condemned. His story serves as a reminder of the moral weight of our decisions. Imagine the psychological toll of knowing you played a role in the execution of someone who claimed to be the Son of God. Did Pilate wrestle with doubt? Did he seek redemption? We may never know for sure. But his alleged torment adds another layer of complexity to this story. Let's explore the historical figure of Pontius Pilate. As the Roman governor of Judea, he was known for his harsh rule and willingness to suppress dissent. Yet the trial of Jesus presented a unique challenge. Faced with a crowd demanding Jesus' death, Pilate washed his hands of the matter, claiming innocence. But was he truly blameless? Modern interpretations of Pilate vary widely. Some view him as a reluctant participant in Jesus' execution, while others see him as complicit in an unjust verdict. Regardless of perspective, his actions raise important questions about accountability and morality. Finally, reflect on the broader implications. If even someone like Pilate struggled with guilt, what does that say about the consequences of our choices? Are we defined by our mistakes, or can we find redemption? But perhaps the most controversial event is still ahead. Event number 6. The empty tomb and resurrection. How do you explain an empty tomb guarded by soldiers, sealed by Rome, yet somehow empty? When Mary Magdalene and the other women arrived at the tomb early Sunday morning, they found the stone rolled away and Jesus' body gone. Eyewitnesses reported seeing him alive, speaking, eating, and interacting with others. Skeptics have tried to debunk this event for centuries, proposing theories like grave robbery or mass hallucination. But none of these explanations account for the sheer number of witnesses or the rapid spread of Christianity despite intense persecution. The resurrection wasn't just a religious claim, it was a historical movement that reshaped the world. Imagine being one of the disciples who saw Jesus alive after his death. How would you react? Would you believe it was real, or would you dismiss it as impossible? This event challenges our understanding of reality and forces us to confront questions about life, death, and eternity. Let's analyze the evidence. First, consider the eyewitness testimonies. Multiple independent accounts describe encounters with the risen Jesus. These accounts include not only believers, but skeptics like Thomas, who initially doubted until he saw Jesus' wounds. Next, examine the societal impact. Within decades, Christianity spread across continents, transforming cultures and societies. Despite facing brutal persecution, early Christians refused to renounce their faith. Why? Because they believed they had encountered the resurrected Christ. Finally, reflect on the philosophical implications. If Jesus truly rose from the dead, what does that mean for humanity? Is there hope beyond the grave? Can love conquer death? These questions continue to inspire millions worldwide. But the story doesn't end there. There's one last event that ties everything together. Event number 7. The Great Commission and Spread of Christianity. How does a movement born out of tragedy grow to change the course of human history? After Jesus ascended into heaven, he gave his followers a mission. Go into all the world and preach the gospel. Despite facing brutal persecution, the apostles traveled far and wide, spreading their message of hope and redemption. Within decades, Christianity had spread across continents, transforming cultures and societies. Today, it's the largest religion in the world, with over 2 billion adherents. These events didn't just shake the world, they reshaped it. And maybe, just maybe, they can reshape your life too. Think about the courage it took for the apostles to leave everything behind and share their faith. What drives people to risk their lives for a cause? Is it love, conviction, or something deeper? Let's trace the journey of Christianity's spread. Beginning in Jerusalem, the message quickly reached Rome, Greece, and beyond. Paul's missionary journeys played a pivotal role, taking the gospel to Gentile communities and establishing churches across the Mediterranean. Consider the challenges faced by early Christians. Persecution was rampant, with believers often martyred for their faith. Yet instead of fading away, the movement grew stronger. Why? Because it offered something the world desperately needed: hope. Reflect on the legacy of Christianity today. From art and literature to science and philosophy, its influence is undeniable. It has inspired acts of compassion, sparked revolutions, and shaped civilizations. But perhaps its greatest contribution is the promise of eternal life, a hope that transcends time and space. So now I ask you, what will you take away from this story? Which event challenges your beliefs the most? Share your thoughts below because conversations like these help us grow together. So there you have it, the 7 mind-blowing events that shook the world after Jesus died. From the eerie darkness that covered the earth to the explosive growth of Christianity, each moment carries profound significance. If these events are true, what does that mean for you today? Did they challenge your perspective? Which event shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. These 7 events weren't isolated incidents. They formed a ripple effect that changed the course of history. From the eerie darkness that covered the earth to the explosive growth of Christianity, each moment carries lessons that resonate even today. Whether you view them as miracles, myths, or metaphors, one thing is certain: they've left an indelible mark on humanity. Take a moment to reflect on the implications. If the dead can rise, if the veil can tear, if the earth itself can quake in response to divine action, then perhaps there's more to life than meets the eye. Perhaps there's hope beyond despair, light beyond darkness, and purpose beyond pain. Modern audiences often struggle to reconcile ancient texts with contemporary realities, but these events remind us that some truths transcend time and culture. They challenge us to look beyond ourselves, to seek answers to life's deepest questions, and to find meaning in the midst of chaos. As you ponder these events, consider their relevance to your own life. Do they inspire awe, spark curiosity, or provoke skepticism? Whatever your reaction, one thing is clear: these stories have endured for millennia because they speak to something fundamental within us, the desire to believe in something greater than ourselves. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of history and faith.